Dear listeners, a new day and a new story to discuss. Today, I'm going to tell you a story that interests me. Listen and write down what you think about this situation. I'm interested in your opinions. It's funny, isn't it? How you can think you know someone. You share your bed, your secrets, even the dimly lit corners of your soul you'd never dare show the world. That was Sophie and me. Or so I thought. Let me take you back to where the ground first shifted beneath me, where my world, as I knew it, began to crumble. I'm telling you, Ethan, it's all in your head, Sophie would say, her voice dripping with that mix of pity and annoyance. It's that tone that gets to you, makes you doubt your own sanity. But the heart knows when something's off, doesn't it? It's like a sixth sense, whispering that the picture's wrong, that the person you trust is wearing a mask. The first crack appeared on an ordinary Tuesday. Nothing special about it, just the mundane rhythm of life in the city. I came home early, anticipation curling in my stomach at the thought of surprising Sophie. But the surprise was all mine. The apartment was too quiet. My footsteps echoed against the walls, a lonely sound. That's when I saw it, the subtle signs of betrayal. A glass on the table, still beating with condensation. Two of them. And Sophie's laugh, floating from the bedroom, wrapped around words I couldn't quite catch. Words shared with someone who wasn't me. I should have stormed in, confronted her then and there. But I didn't. Call it cowardice or shock. I stood frozen, the sound of my heart shattering louder than any words I could muster. Later, she sauntered out, alone, a ghost of guilt flickering in her eyes before she masked it with surprise. Ethan, you're early. I didn't expect you. Who were you talking to? The question slipped out, naked and raw. Just a friend from work. You're being paranoid, love. Her words, a band-aid over a bullet wound. But I couldn't let it go. Couldn't ignore the serpent of suspicion coiling in my gut. So, I did what any sane man driven to the brink would do. I sought the truth in the shadows. A hidden camera, my silent ally, confirmed my worst fears. Alex, my friend, my confidant. In my own home, with Sophie. The betrayal was a double-edged sword, slicing through the remnants of my trust and leaving behind a gaping wound. I confronted her, the evidence in hand, a cold fire burning in my veins. How could you? The words were a grenade, detonating between us. Sophie's defense was weak, a flurry of excuses and pleas for forgiveness. It meant nothing, Ethan. I was lonely, confused. And Alex? He had the gall to plead ignorance, as if he hadn't just betrayed his best friend. Man, I don't know what to say. There's a clarity in betrayal, a brutal honesty in being wounded by those you love. It strips away illusions, leaving behind a choice, forgiveness, or retribution. As I stood there, the pieces of my shattered life at my feet, a cold resolve settled in my heart. Forgiveness is for saints, and I'm no saint. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. Well, I'm in the kitchen, and the freezer's full. So here we are, you and me, in this confessional of sorts. I'm laying my cards on the table, not looking for absolution but understanding. Because what comes next, the path I've chosen, it's dark, it's vengeful, and it's inevitable. They thought they played me for a fool, but the game's just begun. And I'm rewriting the rules. There's a moment, right before betrayal fully hits you, where the world seems to slow down. Everything sharpens, the way the light falls, the sound of your own heartbeat, the sudden, acute awareness of the ground beneath your feet. It's like being in the eye of a hurricane calm, yet surrounded by chaos. That was me, standing on the brink of an abyss I never saw coming. I had the footage, a digital confession of their sins. Watching it was like a slow poison. Sophie and Alex, together, laughing, touching, more. Each frame was a knife, each whispered word a twist of the blade. You don't understand, Ethan. It's complicated, Sophie tried, her voice trembling, when I confronted her. But what's complicated about betrayal? About breaking vows and sneaking around? And Alex, it just happened, man. Just happened. As if betrayal is some accident, a slip on a wet floor, an unfortunate mishap. I wanted to scream, to rage. Instead, I found a cold calm. Did you ever think of me? Of what this would do to me? I asked, the words ice. Sophie's eyes darted away, guilt shadowing her face. I did, but. The word hung between us, a chasm too wide to bridge. It became clear. The life I thought we were building, the love I believed in, it was a house of cards. My trust, the foundation they tore apart. I played the footage again, alone, letting the anger ferment. They carried on in my home, mocking me with their intimacy. It was in that moment, watching the two people I trusted most betray me, that the path forward became clear. Not a path of forgiveness or understanding, but one of retribution. The plan formed quietly, a whisper in the back of my mind. Calculated. Precise. I had no illusions about the man I was becoming. They pushed me here to this precipice, and I was ready to leap. I needed no confessions from them, no sob stories or excuses. I had all I needed, the truth, and with it, the power to dismantle the lives they thought they could build on my ruins. Revenge is a meticulous architect. I began to lay the groundwork, each step deliberate. There's a dark satisfaction in plotting, in turning pain into action. I focused on that, let it guide me, a beacon in the storm of my rage. The confrontation was just the beginning, the first domino to fall in a chain I was meticulously setting up. Sophie's pleas, Alex's bumbling attempts at justification, they were background noise. I was already moving beyond them, my thoughts laser-focused on what came next. I remember Sophie's last attempt to reach me, the desperation in her voice. Ethan, please. We can fix this. Fix this? Some things, once broken, can't be mended. There's no redemption in betrayal, no going back. I looked at her, really looked, and saw nothing of the woman I married. Just a stranger with familiar eyes. The final piece clicked into place. I had everything I needed, motive, means, and opportunity. They thought the worst was over, that we'd move past this, heal. They were wrong. I hope it was worth it, I said, the door closing behind me with a finality that echoed in the empty space we once called home. The storm was coming, and I was its eye. Quiet, calm, deadly. The air was thick with tension, a tangible presence in the room where I planned to lay everything bare. This wasn't just a confrontation. It was the unveiling of a meticulously crafted revenge, a reckoning for the betrayal that had hollowed out my heart. I called Sophie and Alex to meet, under the guise of seeking closure. They sat across from me, a tableau of guilt and apprehension. The silence was oppressive, a prelude to the storm I was about to unleash. I've been thinking, I began, my voice steady, betraying none of the turmoil within. About us, about everything that's happened. Sophie nodded, her eyes wary. Ethan, I raised a hand, stopping her mid-sentence. I've seen it. All of it. The simplicity of the statement hung in the air, heavy with implications. Alex shifted uncomfortably, his gaze flickering between Sophie and me. Seen what, Ethan? He asked, feigning ignorance. The charade was pathetic. I slid my phone across the table, a silent dare for them to deny the evidence it contained. The video played, their secret laid bare in pixels and sound. The color drained from Sophie's face as she watched, her lips parting in a silent gasp of realization. Alex sat frozen, the mask of innocence shattering with each passing second. This, I said, reclaiming my phone, is just the beginning. Sophie's voice was barely a whisper. What do you want, Ethan? Revenge? Justice? The truth was, I no longer knew. The pain had been a constant companion, morphing into a cold, calculating drive for retribution. I want you to understand the depth of your betrayal, I told her, my gaze unwavering. And I want you, Alex, to realize the cost of your actions. My words were directed at him now, a verbal lance aimed straight at his guilt. The room was a pressure cooker, every breath, every shift, amplifying the tension. You can't destroy us, Ethan. It won't change what happened, Alex said, a hint of defiance in his tone. Oh, but I can, and I will. My reply was calm, a stark contrast to the storm raging within me. You see, I've thought long and hard about how to make you pay, and I've come to a decision. Sophie's hand trembled as she reached out, a futile attempt to bridge the chasm between us. Please, Ethan, there has to be another way. Her plea fell on deaf ears. The woman I had loved, trusted, was a ghost now, replaced by this stranger who shared her face. I've arranged for a little revelation, I continued, the word laced with venom. Your families, your friends, everyone will know. The video, the lies, the deceit, all of it. Alex's posture stiffened, his earlier bravado evaporating. You wouldn't dare, he muttered, but the uncertainty in his voice betrayed him. I leaned forward, the final nail ready to be driven in. Watch me. The meeting ended not with a bang, but a whisper, the sound of two lives fracturing under the weight of their choices. As I walked away, leaving them to their shattered illusions, I felt no satisfaction, no triumph. Just the hollow victory of a man who had lost everything to gain his revenge. The silence was deafening after the storm of my departure. There I was, standing in the aftermath of my own making, the ruins of what was supposed to be a life filled with love and partnership. I had expected satisfaction, a sense of justice served cold and precise. Instead, There was emptiness, a void where my heart used to be. In the days that followed, the world learned of Sophie and Alex's betrayal. I watched from the shadows, a spectator to the downfall I had orchestrated. Their family's disappointment, friends' disbelief, the societal judgment, it all unfolded exactly as I had planned. Yet, watching them crumble didn't bring the solace I had imagined. Sophie reached out, her messages a mix of desperation and apology. "Ethan, we need to talk. Please." I ignored them all. What was there left to say? The damage was done, the bridge between us burned to ashes by her own hand. Alex, on the other hand, became a ghost. Rumors of his departure from the city reached me, whispers of a man fleeing from the wreckage of his actions. Good riddance, I thought. But the thought brought no joy. It's funny, isn't it? How revenge can consume you, twist you into something unrecognizable. I had become a version of myself I barely knew, driven by vengeance and a desire to inflict pain as I had felt it. One evening, as I sat in the quiet of my now too empty apartment, the full weight of my actions settled upon me. The screen of my phone lit up with another message from Sophie, her words a plea for closure. "I'm sorry, Ethan. More than you'll ever know. Can we please just talk?" I stared at the message, my resolve wavering. What was I hoping to achieve by maintaining this silence, this distance? In a moment of weakness, or perhaps clarity, I dialed her number. The line rang, a countdown to a conversation I never thought I'd have. "Ethan?" Her voice was small, laced with tears and regret. "Why?" It was the only question that mattered. "I don't know." I was lost, confused. "It's no excuse. I never meant to hurt you." Her confession was raw, a wound laid bare. The anger in me simmered, still present but no longer the raging inferno it had been. "You destroyed us, Sophie. I know, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life." The line went silent, our breaths the only sound, a bridge across the chasm of our shared past. "I needed to hear you say it," I finally admitted, the words tasting of bile and relief all at once. "Does this mean you can forgive me?" There was hope in her voice, a fragile thing. "I don't know if I can, but maybe I can start to let go of the hate." Hanging up, I felt a shift within me. The path of vengeance I had chosen left me isolated in my own personal hell, a hell I needed to escape. The realization hit me hard. In seeking revenge, I had tethered myself to the very people I sought to punish. It was time to cut the cord, to find a way out of the darkness. Sophie's downfall, Alex's exile, it was all a Pyrrhic victory. The cost of their destruction was my own peace of mind, a price too steep for any man to pay willingly. In the silence of my apartment, I made a decision. It was time to rebuild, not from the ruins of what was, but for the potential of what could be. A life not defined by the actions of those who wronged me, but by my ability to rise above them. The road to redemption is a long one, fraught with the remnants of past betrayals and the shadow of revenge. But it's a road I choose to walk, one step at a time, away from the downfall and toward a new dawn. The decision to leave was like ripping off a bandage from a wound that never fully healed. It stung, a sharp reminder of everything I'd endured, yet it was also a liberation from the chains I'd wrapped so tightly around my own wrists in the name of revenge. I packed my life into boxes, each item a fragment of a past I was desperate to put behind me. The process was methodical, a physical manifestation of my desire to compartmentalize the pain, to lock it away where it could no longer touch me. As I sifted through memories, Sophie's voice broke the silence, a call I answered out of a sense of obligation more than anything else. "Ethan, are you sure about this? Leaving everything behind?" Her voice, once the melody to which my heart beat, now sounded distant, a song from another life. "I'm sure," I said, the words clipped, final. "It's the only way forward. But there's so much here for you, for us," she persisted, the plea in her voice a tether I was determined to cut. "Us." I laughed, a sound bitter and void of any real humor. "Sophie, there hasn't been an us since you chose to destroy everything we had." The line went quiet, her resignation palpable even through the silence. "I really am sorry, Ethan." "I know," I replied, and I did. I believed in her regret, in the sincerity of her apology. But it wasn't enough to undo the past or pave a way for a future together. The finality of my departure felt like stepping off a cliff, a free fall into the unknown. The apartment emptied, my car loaded, I took one last look at the life I was leaving behind. The pain, the betrayal, the love, it was all woven into the fabric of this place, a tapestry too stained to ever come clean. Driving away, the city receded in my rearview mirror, a chapter closing with each mile I put between myself and what was once my home. The road ahead was uncertain, a path untraveled and daunting in its newness. I found myself on the outskirts of the city by dusk, the horizon a blend of orange and pink, a painting in motion. It was there, in the quiet of my own company, that the weight of my decisions settled around me like a cloak. I had chosen exile over enduring the ghosts that haunted every corner of my old life. In my quest for vengeance, I had lost sight of who I was, of the man I wanted to be. The realization was a pang of clarity, sharp and unwelcome. Ethan, I said to myself, the sound of my own voice strange in the solitude, what have you become? The question lingered, unanswered, as the miles stretched on. With each passing moment, the city behind me became a distant memory, a life lived by someone I no longer recognized. This exodus was not just a physical departure but an emotional one. I was leaving behind not only Sophie and Alex, but also the parts of myself that had been consumed by hatred and retribution. It was a self-imposed exile, a journey not just away from them, but toward finding myself again. The road ahead was long, and I knew not where it would lead. But for the first time in a long while, I felt a spark of hope, a belief that perhaps, beyond the pain and betrayal, there was a chance for redemption, for peace. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the world in a soft glow of twilight, I drove on, a solitary figure on a road less traveled, seeking not just a new destination, but a new beginning. The journey to rebirth is not a straight line. It's a winding path through valleys of shadow and peaks of light. Leaving the city, the life, and the people I once knew behind was just the first step. What followed was a pilgrimage through my own psyche, a quest to rediscover the man I was before vengeance clouded my vision. I settled in a small town far from the ghosts of my past, where nobody knew my name or the scars I carried. It was in this anonymity that I found the space to breathe, to heal. The quiet of the countryside was a stark contrast to the cacophony of the city, a soothing balm to my frayed nerves. I thought I'd find you here, a voice broke through my solitude one crisp morning. It was my reflection speaking, mirrored in the still waters of a nearby lake. You've come a long way, Ethan. Indeed, I had. The man who stared back at me was familiar yet fundamentally changed. The hard edges of anger and revenge had softened, giving way to a resilience born of suffering and introspection. I had conversations with myself, confessions of a sort, where I laid bare the darkest corners of my heart. I let them define me. I admitted to the silence of the dawn, Sophie's betrayal, Alex's deceit. I became a prisoner to my own desire for retribution. But here, amid the tranquility of nature, I began to understand that forgiveness was not a gift to those who wronged me but a liberation for myself. It was a difficult lesson, one that required me to confront the ugliness within and acknowledge my part in the cycle of pain. I'm sorry, I whispered to the wind, an apology to myself for the wounds I inflicted in my quest for vengeance. I'm ready to let go. The decision to forgive was not a moment of epiphany, but a gradual acceptance that the only way forward was through release. I forgave Sophie, not for her sake, but for mine, to free myself from the chains of the past. I forgave Alex, not because he deserved it, but because I needed peace. The real test came unexpectedly in the form of a letter from Sophie. She wrote of her own journey through remorse and regret, of the life she was trying to rebuild from the ashes of our shared past. I understand if you can't forgive me, she wrote, but I needed you to know that I am truly sorry. Holding the letter, I felt the final threads of anger dissolve. In its place, a profound sadness for what might have been, for the love lost and the time wasted. Yet, there was also a sense of closure, a chapter finally ending. Rebirth is not just about moving on but growing from the pain, learning from the mistakes. I started to write again, my words a testament to my journey from darkness into light. Each sentence was a step towards healing, a declaration of my intent to live not in the shadow of the past, but in the promise of the future. The last page of my story is not written in the ink of regret, but with the hope of redemption. As I pen these final lines to you, dear reader, I stand not as a victim of betrayal, but as a survivor of my own heart's resilience. I found love again, not the all-consuming passion that blinds and binds, but a quiet companionship that heals and holds. In her eyes, I see not the specter of Sophie, but the reflection of a man reborn, whole and at peace. The rebirth of Ethan was not marked by fanfare or a grand revelation, but by a simple truth, that forgiveness, though often the hardest path, leads to the most profound liberation. My exodus from vengeance to forgiveness, from ruin to renewal, is a journey I walk with my head held high, a testament to the enduring strength of the human spirit. And so, I move forward, carrying the lessons of the past not as burdens but as beacons, guiding me towards a future filled with possibilities. This is not the end but a new beginning, a life reborn from the ashes of despair, ready to embrace whatever comes next with an open heart and a renewed spirit.